Hi guys, welcome to another video. I'm Charlie from VRAM Gaming Systems, and I just came across this video by our local content creator JulianTechTM, which if you are in the so-called PC building space in Singapore, you would have noticed JulianTechTM like quite a long while ago. I've been following his content. I really do like his content. He has a very local focus. He focused on prices in the local scene, like from Sim Square, Shopee, Lazada, and so on. And he's a big inspiration for why I started my channel to talk about local PC building tech. So he has this recent build on upload video about a $1,500 gaming PC, but it's the Shopee edition. So he does have a restriction that he can only build from buying from Shopee. So that is a pretty big limitation. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a build that kind of beats him in terms of memory space. So I have 1 TB more NVMe space, and I have a better GPU, which is a 9060XE 16GB, while still staying within the budget of $1,500. And spoilers, the way I sacrifice it, it's just like what he mentioned, is to cut a bit here, cut a bit there, and for me, I cut it on the CPU and the motherboard. Okay, so let's go through part by part on what he recommends for his 1,500 Shopee edition and what I recommend for on my site, and yeah, the difference in parts and how I so-called beat his build. Unfortunately, if you're going to watch through this whole video, I don't have benchmarks because I actually do not own a 9060XT 16GB or the exact same CPU, the 7600, which I'm going to be using in my build for a benchmark, because we are going to be building this PC for a customer later in the month, but it will be his PC, so I probably wouldn't be able to run any benchmarks on it. So unfortunately, no benchmarks, but the projected performance should be better than what he has here based on the better GPU. So first, CPU wise, Julian is recommending the 9600X because he says it's slightly more future proof. For me, I don't think that is that important because as long as we're on the AM5 platform, it basically is already kind of future proof, and the customer or yourself, if you're building this system, you can always upgrade the CPU at a later time if you wish to. You can get a 7800X3D if you have more budget. That costs about $500 over. And actually in Julian's video, he did recommend the 7800X3D, which was I think, yeah, 7800X3D, he is about $500 over, which is exactly what my research has yielded as well. So if you have a higher budget, you can always upgrade to that for higher FPS. Or you can always go to 9800X3D, but that is way over budget for 1,005 because that 9800X3D, the CPU alone costs above 800 Sing dollars. So for my CPU, I'm recommending the 7600, which he also mentioned in one of his videos here. That in his video here, that you can actually make options to cut the price on, like cut down to the 7600, or in my opinion, I say you can even cut down further to 7500F or 7400F. So in my build list here, the 7600 along with a B650 EM-E Wi-Fi gaming motherboard costs $418 if I buy it from the bundle from Dynacore, which is a shop in Simlim. And in his case, his CPU costs him, I think, about 300 plus. I forgot his exact price, 300 plus. And then his motherboard actually costs, what is it? He has $180 for his motherboard. His CPU, do I have the list? Oh, what's his CPU price? 315. Yeah, so his CPU costs 315, which is honestly a bit on the expensive side because there are a lot cheaper options around. So like I mentioned, I went for my combo, which is $418 for the CPU and the motherboard. But if you want to save even more, the option is to buy from AliExpress. You can go for a 7400F from AliExpress, which can cost about 150-ish to about 170. You have to add probably GST and like shipping, so it might add up to about 180. That is for CPU 180 SGD, or you can go for the 7500F. Here they're listing it at about 175, 188, but that's before GST and shipping. So plus DNT and shipping, you are expected to pay around 210 about 205 to 210 Sing dollars for the 7500F. So this is the CPU price, and then for the motherboard, you can also stay on AliExpress and get really cheap B650M motherboards. Personally, I am using this, the not that this exact model. I'm using a Xingyue B60M, I think Night Devil motherboard. Is it here? Let me just check a bit. B650M Night Devil, or is it out of stock? B6050M Night Devil. Yeah, it might be out of stock. Oh, this one. Yeah, I'm running this B650M Night Devil from Xingyue. It's a ITX B650 motherboard, and it runs perfectly fine. But the downside you have to be aware when you're going for this Chinese motherboards is that the BIOS is from this Chinese providers. So their website is in Chinese. You have to use Google Translate. They do provide an English like option. From what I know, they do have BIOS updates. I did update my BIOS for my Xingyue motherboard, but their BIOS updates are probably not as frequent as from the Taiwanese makers such as MSI, Gigabyte, Asus, and so on. And I would say that in terms of features, the motherboard does lack certain features. For example, my Xingyue ITX motherboard doesn't have a temperature sensor for, I believe, is it the CPU? Oh no, sorry, it does have temperature sensors. It doesn't have fan control. So for example, for my Gigabyte, I have a X670GB motherboard, but I think the B650GB motherboards will have it as well, which is it has a fan control inbuilt into the BIOS, so I can actually tune my fan curve inside the BIOS. So it applies a fan curve when it boots up. But when I go to the Xingyue motherboard, it actually doesn't have that option at all. So I cannot tune my fan speed inside the BIOS. I have to use on aftermarket software in order to do that. But I also don't know whether the aftermarket software can read the fan RPM, because I think the fan RPM sensors are not inbuilt into the motherboard for whatever reason. There's no PWM sensor. So there is that. So if you're going for this Chinese motherboards, yes, they are cheap. Because if you look at the price, let's say we pay about 100 plus for a cheap B650M motherboard, right? So that is about, if you add GST, about 130. Then if you add a 7500F for like 210, 210 plus 130 will still be less than about 100. It will still be less than 350 SGD. So that will still beat my recommendation here by about $60. So that's a lot cheaper. Other concerns with getting 7500F, I think it's just a downclock version of the 7600X, or downclock version of 7600. So is that you still have the soldered IHS. If you're going for the 7400F, you have to take note that the IHS and the CPU die is not soldered. It's actually just attached using glue, using some gum and thermal paste. So the thermal conductivity is not as good. I actually have a video on how I just deleted a 7400F as well, and then I applied liquid metal to it for huge temperature improvements. Like I managed to lower the hotspot temps by as much as 23 degrees with liquid metal instead of just using their standard thermal paste. So if you're buying a 7400F, it's even further downclocked than the 7500F because of that thermal paste limitation. But after deleting and putting liquid metal on it, I did manage to overclock it all the way to hit the same clock speeds as a 7600X. So then I had no issues with it. So there is that. So technically, the chip is exactly the same as the 7600X, just that maybe on Silicon Lottery, you might not get as high a speed, but you do have to add some modifications to it to apply liquid metal so that the 7400F can hit those performance numbers. Okay. So that is that. Moving on, so I spent a lot of time in the CPU. Moving on to his motherboard. So his motherboard is the, how much is his motherboard? Yeah, so it's he bought a B6, a BA50? Or he bought a BA50 motherboard for around $220-ish. So his motherboard, so take note that his motherboard is 220, his CPU is 315. So his motherboard and CPU combo alone already cost him about 500 plus. So you can see where we are saving money, right? We're saving money on the CPU and the motherboard, and we direct those money into the GPU, which Julian did mention that in this exact video that we can do that. So we can actually save quite a fair bit and then direct direct it towards the GPU. And in his case, he's using the Crucial DDR5, 32 gigabytes of 6000 megahertz DDR5 RAM. I think it's at CL36, and I think he's getting it at $131 from Shopee. So for my build, I'm actually using the exact same. Where is it? Yeah, I'm using the exact same DDR5 RAM. So exact same Crucial Pro DDR5, 6000 megahertz CL36. I think it's the same as what Julian is mentioning in this video. He has the white ones for about 131, and I can get the black kit from Dynacore for 129. So it's just $2 worth of savings. So it's essentially the same price. Moving on, for that is his RAM, right? Motherboard RAM, his Nvme SSD. So this is where I kind of spent a little bit more. So he has a Crucial T500, a 1TB DRAM cache Gen 4 Nvme SSD, and that cost him about, does he have the price listed here? Let me see. Probably want to mute his video. Wait, where's his price? Here. So his SSD cost him $119, which is $120. For similar price, I got a 2TB AData Legend 860, 6000 megabits per second Gen 4 NVMe SSD at 155 SGD from Dynacore. So the difference is that his is only 1TB. Obviously, we get 2TB on my recommendation, which we double the capacity. If you are an avid gamer, you will know that Steam games now really modern games take up a lot of space. The most famous, I think, being like Call of Duty Warzone, which because it installs like all the other Call of Duty games along with it and bloats the whole installation to like 120 over gigabytes. But there are optimizations that you can actually like optimize it and have a lot less space. But anyway, modern games are heavy in capacity, and if you're an avid gamer, a 1TB NVMe SSD actually fills up really fast. So I highly recommend, if you can, spend a little bit extra. Like in my case, we spend $30 extra, we get a 2TB NVMe SSD. And why is ours so much cheaper is because his Crucial T500 actually has a DRAM cache. So if you look at the Crucial Pro T500 like reviews, they talked about it has I think cache here. So this is from Tech Power Up. Yep, so the DRAM cache is in the T500, and in our case, with our ADATA 860, right, it doesn't have a DRAM cache. It uses SLC cache algorithm and uses HMB, host memory buffer. So it doesn't have that DRAM cache, which means it's cheaper, but it's not as fast when it comes to probably random read and writes and so on. In my opinion, it doesn't affect that much. It will probably be a little bit slower, obviously, than the T500 with the DRAM cache when it comes to copying files, installing stuff, and maybe loading games. But once your game is loaded, you'll probably not notice like any speed difference at all. And I believe probably the loading speed difference between SSD with DRAM cache and without, maybe a few seconds, maybe even less than a second. I don't know, maybe you have to search for like online reviews that try and test it out. So I don't think loading speed differs that much between that. Then installation speed, honestly, is not that much of a big deal. Yep, but probably if you are a content creator and if you are moving files in and out of your SSD a lot, let's say from your portable hard disk, or if you have like your home-based like storage network, and then you are downloading files in and out as a content creator, then maybe you might want something with a DRAM cache or even go for a Gen 5 NVMe. But personally, I feel like more capacity at lower price is always better. Okay, so and then our speeds like 6,000 megabytes per second compared to the T500, which is 7,300. So it is slower but very marginal. So moving on. CPU cooler, he both in his video and me, we're recommending the same. So he recommended the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 120. He bought it from Shopee. He bought it at $49.90. So in my build, I'm also recommending the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 120 SE. So just the SE and non-SE is about the same. So in my build, I have the black version for 42 SGD, so slightly cheaper from Dynacore. And if we're going for all white build, actually all this can be converted to white as well. Probably we can also buy a white version of the Thermalright Peerless Assassin. I think it's also at a similar price to what Julian gets it, so it's about $50. And then the RAM, everything, we can get a white version as well. So Moving on, so CPU cooler, we have the same. His case, yep, so he went for a really cheap case. The Fractal North is not that. So for $61.90, he has the TechWare Timber M. I think this is Timber M, not the full Timber. Actually, in my channel, I have a build inside the TechWare Timber, the full size one, the ATX version, the black Timber, and it also costs about the same price. But you can see how small the case is on Julian's lab. So I believe his is the TechWare Timber M. Really cheap price. In my build, I mean, my customer actually chose the Lancool 207 ARGB, which is a full ATX motherboard. Because he wants the better airflow. Personally, I recommended a different case, but he wants the one with the bigger airflow. Yeah, so that is that. So small distract. Okay, what was I was distracted. Oh yeah, I wanted to showcase the case. So the case that Julian selected is already on his lab. You can see it in his video. I'll probably link his video down in the description below, so please watch it for context. Yeah, where is the Lancool 207? So Lancool 207 actually looks like this. This is the black version, and they have the white version. The white version actually is more expensive by just $2 from Dynacore. So at 112 compared to, wait, where's the case? Yeah, compared to 110 for the black version. So it's still pretty affordable. And why I personally like this case too is that if you see on the white version here, it has two fans on the PSU stroud, on the top of the ceiling of the PSU stroud. The PSU will be below, and this actually helps. It is included fans as well. So this included fans actually direct airflow into the GPU, which really lowers the GPU temps. Personally, in my Fantech XT view, I actually included one single fan to draw airflow from the top of the PSU shroud into the GPU, and personally it really helps the GPU temps. So I'm a big fan of this, and it has ARGB fans as well, two ARGB fans in the front. I believe those are 200mm or 180mm ARGB fans, so it has a lot of airflow in the front and then provides airflow into your GPU as well, and all these are included fans. So this is a really good case. Obviously, it's more expensive than Julian's recommendation, the TechWare Timber M. And the TechWare Timber M, if you look at it here, also comes with included fans. I believe probably two fans in the front and one exhaust fan at the back. It doesn't have fans to bring intake into the GPU, so that's a downside. And it's a small MATX case, but it looks really nice as well. So I mean, case is really up to you individually. You can go for whichever ones that you like the look of. PSU. So Julian is recommending the 650-watt Thermalright SG Go, the white edition, because it comes with white cables. Personally, in my build, I am recommending this, the Cooler Master G800 Go, non-modular for 105. The difference is that this obviously is lower wattage, right? So Julian's build has lower wattage, and this is I believe from my research, is a tier C power supply. So it is not as high quality as the Cooler Master one, because the Cooler Master G800, based on the SPL PSU tier list, is considered a tier B power supply. So it is a little bit better for higher end GPUs. If the customer, like if you have this build and you want to upgrade your GPU in the future, having a tier B power supply probably means it can last longer and it has better power delivery to, more stable, more consistent power delivery to your GPU. So there's that, and we can see so there's the power supply. It's pretty boring, black, but it gets the job done, and tier B. Okay, next up on Julian's video. So what else? Power supply, and finally on the GPU. So in this build, he has a 5060, but later on in his video, he actually benchmarks it against the 9060 XT. This is the exact same model I'm recommending, just that his is the 8GB version. He got it for 445. So yeah, so that is benchmark. So what I'm recommending here, if you are building this, is the same brand, like the power color AMD Reaper 9060 XT, but the 16GB version. So obviously it's more expensive. Like he got his one at how much again? At 445, but we can get it. You can get the 16GB version at 525 from Dynacore. And if you are having a white build, you can actually get a white one. Like you can see that this Zotac 5060 it's kind of like a sore thumb out in the white build, right? Because it's not white. But we can actually get a white version of the 16GB 9060 XT for the same price if you go with XFX. So on Dynacor's list, there's actually an XFX listed here. So let's look at this. Let me try and find it. So XFX Swift right here. So the XFX Swift, and this is the white version, also at 525. So you can actually get the same performing GPU from XFX, and if you're having a white build. Okay, then there is that. Any other difference? So it goes into benchmarks and all that. So obviously in my case, in this video, I won't have benchmark numbers to show you guys, but the 16GB version of the 9060 XE definitely will outperform the 8GB version, especially when we goes to triple A modern titles. One very prominent one will be Monster Hunter Wilds. Monster Hunter Wilds is famous for poor performance on 8GB or 8GB GPUs or lower, because you can see on the Steam page a lot of complaints, and most of the complaints are actually about VRAM. Because if you have 16GB of VRAM and you play Monster Hunter Wilds, you won't notice the texture missing. But if you have an 8GB GPU, I think even on 1080p, like on certain settings, you will notice textures are going missing on Monster Hunter Wilds, and you have poor performance. Then other modern games, I think you can check out I think Hardware Unboxed has a lot of benchmarks. Daniel Owen has a lot of benchmarks comparing 8 and 16GB versions of the 9060 XT. And you can see there are a lot of modern games. I think Spider-Man Remastered, Spider-Man 2 Remastered. Obviously, I think Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Most of the modern games that takes up a lot of textures and so on, the 16GB memory buffer really does help a lot with the FPS. And I mean, some people might complain that argue that 8GB GPUs are fine because I only play like Valorant, I only play Counter-Strike, and I only play Rainbow Six Siege X. I only play Overwatch, I only play Apex Legends, I only play Dota 2, for example. And valid argument, because at 8GB, if it doesn't exceed the memory buffer, the 8GB version of the 9060 XT should perform the same as the 16GB one. But we gotta be frank. If you're building a brand new GPU, if you're spending 1,500 Singapore dollars on a brand new computer, if you're building a brand new computer and you're spending 1,500 Sing dollars on a brand new computer, are you not gonna play the brand new AAA titles? Probably the main motivation for building a brand new computer is because you're probably tempted to play the AAA titles that you see on the Steam page, for example, and you want a brand new powerful computer to play those AAA titles. So honestly, if you're just an esports gamer, like you're just playing Dota 2, you're just playing Valorant and Counter-Strike, you can save a lot of money by just going to the used market and buy a used build for less than $1,000, maybe even less than 800 Sing dollars, and you can have a very capable system to play those esports titles. If you're spending as much as 1,500 Singapore dollars on a brand new computer, you are probably gonna play AAA games. So so why would you get a 8GB GPU on a brand new expensive, I would consider 1,500 Sing dollars to be pretty expensive. It's expensive computer. So this is my personal gripe with this recommendation, is that I personally really don't agree with Julian recommending an 8GB GPU for this price point, 1,500, because in my case, we could have cut a lot of corners in the CPU and all that, and then directed that extra $100 and get a 16GB GPU. That will be so much more future proof. It will allow you to have such a much better experience gaming in terms of the AAA titles, right? Just Monster Hunter Wilds, I think just the price of the GPU alone is worth it if you're playing Monster Hunter Wilds. If you're playing Monster Hunter Wilds on the 5060 or 9060 XT 8GB, you'll probably be crying because you'll be missing textures and all that, and you'll probably be one of the angry gamers that spam the Steam page on post a negative review on Monster Hunter Wilds, game bad, optimization bad. That's because we don't have we don't have enough VRAM. So that's that. If you have any questions for this build, feel free to post in the comments below. And yeah, so obviously this is not to downplay Julian's recommendations. Like, he is pretty restricted in this video. He has to only buy from Shopee. But in my case, my recommendations, I'm buying from Simlim Square. So not that Simlim Square is cheaper than Shopee, but sometimes if you have more options, like I'm shopping for deals from Simlim Square, from online Lazada. I don't really search Shopee. Maybe I should include Shopee in my search in the future. So, and AliExpress as well. So I widen my search options and I can find a lot better deals. But in his case, in this video, he's extremely restricted. So this is the best he can come up with. And he did explain his choice for CPU as well as motherboard, because he actually wants to future-proof his build. That's why he spent a bit more on those. But personally, I believe that, yeah, we can skimp a bit on a CPU. Personally, if this is my personal build, I would skimp even more on the CPU and go for a 7400F with a cheap Chinese motherboard. And then maybe we can direct even more money and get perhaps a 9070, right? Because if we save another like $50 and so on, then maybe add a little bit more money into the GPU, we can upgrade all the way to a 9070. If you're an Nvidia user, you can go for 5060 Ti 16GB. Yeah, but a 9070 would be a huge upgrade again over the 9060 XT. Yeah, so that's that. So that's that for this video, and we will see you guys in the next one.